Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
Welcome to Overwatch Central. So for those that don't know, we did a video last week talking about Reinhardt and how there's a lot of inconsistencies and a couple of bugs in his kit that makes playing him incredibly frustrating, and basically saying that there's a lot of broken stuff in his kit. Now broken is a very loaded word and it's not necessarily something that we use lightly. We don't like using it when something's overpowered or weak and stuff like that, but there's definitely a lot of problems to do with Reinhardt that are causing the hero a lot of problems, and in turn are causing a lot of problems within the game. Well, he's not the only one. Genji is another hero that across all of his abilities in Overwatch, there are some pretty hefty inconsistencies and just weird bugs throughout it. So in this video we wanted to cover some of the main ones, but also discuss what bugs were fixed last week with a post from Jeff Goodman. Now before we get started, again like the Reinhardt video, I want to know what you guys have experienced with Genji, whether there have been some bugs that you've spotted that are causing problems for you. Maybe Genji's out spamming I need healing enough, I don't know. Let us know below I suppose. But also if there are any other heroes that you would deem broken, not necessarily overpowered or something like that, just more heroes that have a lot of problems across all of their abilities due to server response lag and the like, I suppose. And also a big shout out to our friend Mistronomus, who is the sort of footage in the background. We've got a couple of clips that we also want to use to show off what exactly we mean by some of these bugs that we're talking about, but more or less it's going to be missed in the background, so do check out his details below. Probably one of the best Genjis that we've ever met, so if you want to learn more how to be a pro Genji, then he is the person to ask.
Before we go into some of Genji's weird bugs and glitches, we wanted to go over the bug fixes and honestly the buff that Genji received last week. Just to sort of explain what it was, but also to quell any comments of I thought they fixed this bug, the answer is they kinda fixed one, but not the main one that people are kind of upset about. Pop quiz time, how many swipes of this sword does Genji get with his ultimate Dragon Blade? It's a bit of a tricky question, but the answer should be 6, but because of latency problems, some Genjis were striking up to 7 times. This is what the bug fix that principal designer Jeff Goodman spoke about on the Blizzard forums, and to quote, "Before the last major patch, the amount of sword swings you could get changed depending on your latency. Strangely, if you had higher latency, you could swing more often. This bug was fixed, which caused some players to suddenly get fewer swings than they were used to. Looking into this bug in more detail, the ping threshold before you could gain a single extra swing was somewhat low, so many people probably got used to 7 swings rather than 6. With that in mind, we are going to increase his swing speed overall, so he'll gain that 7 swing back for all players, regardless of latency. I'm not entirely sure when we can get that update into the players' hands, but we'll make sure it's in the patch notes when it hits. I don't think this change has hit the live service just as of yet at least, but we quickly wanted to go over this change before we talked about another big bug to do with Genji's ultimate.
So now we've gone over what bug was actually changed, let's talk about the other phantom strike that has to do with Dragon Blade. Basically, you'll sort of see some footage on screen showing you that the blade is actually hitting its target, so you can see the swipe on the target from the blade, but you're not getting hit marker and it's not actually dealing any damage. Even though you probably should be. A lot of the time it looks like you should be in range, so these should be heroes that you must be killing, in a sense. Now what I'm personally surmising, it's very similar to Reinhardt. What I mean by that is an example of, say you're just out of distance from hitting somebody with your Reinhardt hammer head on, they're right in front of you. Whereas if you turn to the side, you actually then can hit them, you are within range. And it's a very similar thing to do with Genji's Dragon Blade. Whilst you might be far enough away that head on you're not doing any damage, if you aim it to the side or up, you might actually start hitting them. And I feel like this is one of those situations. Now of course when you're the person that Genji's attacking, not being hit is a little bit of a saviour, but obviously there's an inconsistency in that kit and that should not be happening, full stop. That it's saying that you're hitting this person, it's making the sound effect and the animation, but no damage has been done. Now this wins or loses games because Genji's ultimate is that powerful, so this really should be looked at, as this is the main problem that a lot of Genji players are sort of piping up and saying this needs fixing as soon as possible. The second one has to do with the wall climb. Now this has been a bit of a problem since the closed beta in Genji's edition. Just on some surfaces, just falling off the wall, not climbing as high as you should be, just to small objects, or just some weird walls that don't necessarily want to work with Genji's wall climb. This isn't so much like the Phantom Strike where it causes big problems and it really needs fixing, but it's just a madly annoying thing, and wrapped up with all of the other bugs that we're going to talk about, this just gets really annoying, and I'm not surprised that Genji players find themselves frustrated with stuff like this. And our third and final, I guess in inverted commas, main bug has to do with the Genji dash. A couple of things. First of all, if you're sort of charging through a group of enemies that might be, say, in a graviton surge, sometimes you don't get hit markers and you don't actually deal damage to some of the targets that you dash through. Now again, similar to the Dragon Blade, if you're not hitting these people, then that is a big problem that needs to be fixed, full stop. And another big problem with the dash is actually being hit, hooked, or CC'd whilst you're dashing in your own place. So for example, a road hook can hook you as you're dashing from where you used to be, because in a nutshell, you have 2 hitboxes when you're dashing, so you can be CC'd or even killed if you're low on health, if enemies are shooting you where you used to be whilst you're dashing. Now the thing is with these changes is, it just sort of takes Blizzard to look at them and work out why these things may or may not be happening. We've already spoken about some changes at the start of this video, and it would be nice to see Blizzard sort of address the other ones as well, but we just wanted to speak about the more common ones, but mostly about the phantom strikes that we spoke about. That's the main issue that really needs resolving.
So these 2 bugs are probably the most prominent and the most annoying in the game at the moment. That's not to say that Genji doesn't have other problems though. Much like Reinhardt, Genji has a lot of problems across all of his kits. Whilst they may not be as common as the Dragon Blade or Wall Climb, these abilities we are going to go over do have some interesting glitches. The first is Deflect, surprise surprise, which has a couple of interesting stories that we've heard. The first being that the Deflect just doesn't work sometimes. Even when the ability is being used and the animation sound is playing, CC abilities such as Flashbang, Hook or Sleep still make their way through, or just normal attacks that end up killing you. Another problem to do with the damage is that the Deflect doesn't really reflect the damage back at the enemy properly. The hit registration can sometimes be really inconsistent. Also, if you use Deflect at the end of your Dragon Blade, it cancels when you unsheath the sword. That does make sense from a logical standpoint, but should it really happen? Because you're basically using your Deflect, getting less out of it, and then you get stuck into the ultimate end animation as well. So basically, just don't use your Deflect whilst your ult is about to end. Shuriken hit registration can be a little bit inconsistent too at times and just a little bit wonky overall, but this actually has more to do with the audio, interestingly enough. Whilst you nail 3 headshots with your shurikens, it can sometimes sound like you only hit maybe 2. Whilst this necessarily isn't totally game breaking at all, it can be just a little bit annoying, especially when it comes to a hero that needs to keep on top of how much damage he's dealing to a target to know when to dash and to dedicate and not dedicate and that sort of thing. There are probably a dozen more bugs to do with Genji's kit, but we wanted to just highlight some of the most common ones for you today, so we hope you enjoyed this informative yet very compact video. It just seems like some heroes are always gonna have some bugs with them, just due to how their kit interacts quite heavily with other players and enemies a lot of the time, meaning that latency and other things that multiplayer bring come into play.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Again, big shout out to our friend Mist. He's a great guy, very good Genji, so hopefully you've enjoyed the footage in the background, and he's done a really good job of showing some of these really big problems that we've seen in the past, so do check him out. And as per usual, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We put out daily content of Overwatch, news guides, all alike, so if you are interested in that, then do subscribe and like the video just to sort of share the message that there are some big problems with Genji, and it's not just you Genji mains that are complaining about this. This is sort of a big problem that affects everyone. And also, if there are any other heroes that you deem broken, aren't working as they should be, not working as intended, then do let us know in the comments below. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you then.